I'm Julia Davis, a film major who stumbled into the business world with no experience in 2006. I was able to fail enough to learn how to run a seven-figure business and have provided consulting services to over 200 individually owned companies. Through this podcast, I hope to provide some perspective on the growth and grit it takes to accomplish big goals and share some hard lessons I've had to learn along the way. Today on Growth and Grit, I am joined by the creator of Preferences, the game, Lindsey Aiello, who created this game of choices in psychology and human behavior after she loved playing it with her friends and turned it into a real product. So we'll dive into what it takes to launch a game, lessons she learned along the way, and how to push through ups and downs and challenges of building something new. So thanks so much for joining me today, Lindsey. Appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into what you created and, how to play the game. What were you doing before this? Like before you started creating a product, like what was your day job?
Oh my gosh. So I'll just start when I graduated college because that's kind of like the beginning of this whole thing. But I was working in restaurants and I had worked in restaurants for a long time, serving and managing. And then COVID hit and it was time for me to get my first big girl job. So I just was looking on LinkedIn and didn't really know what to look for. And I just saw that there was a customer support rep that was hiring, and so I was like, "Okay, this sounds interesting." I didn't know anything about the company, but I knew that I had, like, customer experience, so I just applied, and it ended up being for ClickUp, which is a huge project management software, and I really had no idea what I was getting into, but I started as a customer support rep and kinda just got thrown into the fire and really liked it. Like, I really liked startup, I liked the fast pace, I liked all of it. And so I did that for a few months, and then they asked me to start onboarding customer support reps. So I did that for a bit, and then that turned into onboarding the entire company. So we didn't really have HR yet. So I was kind of just like, we were just called onboarding coordinators, but it ended up falling under HR. And so then I grew a passion for HR as well. And that's what I was doing before all of this.
So what made you have like the hunger or desire to like go the entrepreneurial route when you had this like pretty killer job, right? Like ClickUp is a pretty cool company to work for. I feel like it's got a good environment and it's like a positive brand. So what was your mindset when you're like, okay, this is great and I like this job, but I want to do something on my own or something new? What was your mindset there?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've thought about this. I feel like when I listen to people's stories of entrepreneurship, they're always like, "Oh, I was inventing things when I was little," or "I had a lemonade stand," and I had all of those things, but I didn't really know of entrepreneurship. Like, I didn't really know I didn't know what that was. I didn't really hear anything of it. Both of my parents, my dad is a doctor and he had his own business. He has his own practice. And then my mom is a therapist, so she kind of had her own practice as well. But it was never like I'm an entrepreneur. So I didn't really know anything about that. And at the time, my team that I was working really well with for the past year had kind of started to, for lack of a better word, just fall apart and things got really sticky. And I was trying to work on preferences while that was happening. And I just would get home from work and be exhausted and have no creative juice to work on preferences. And so that's kind of why I ended up quitting my job and doing preferences full time, was just because it wasn't working out in my company anymore. And I feel like when things like that happen and you get really uncomfortable, it's kind of like the universe like pushing you out and saying like, okay, like, this isn't working anymore. It's time to do something new. And so I listened to that and I quit and I got to serving jobs and was serving and working doubles, and there's lots of other things that I've been doing over the past 4 years, but that was the catalyst, and that was kind of like how this all started.
So then you were just like, I need something to make money while I'm building this. So it was kind of like, let me just go back to the serving industry because that's quick cash for sure. So
Yes.
like kind of fuel the project, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice like a mindset shift that had to happen from like clocking in and working every day to now like creating and developing something new? Like what was that mind shift that you had to take?
Oh, yeah, that's been something that I feel like I've been working on over the past 4 years is just, like, figuring out how to manage my time and, not having, to be somewhere in the morning, and it's a challenge for me, and I think I'm getting a lot better at it, but, especially with working in restaurants, it, drains you. and it's a lot, so I would still have to figure out how to have the energy to work on the game while also working in restaurants, but I love working in restaurants, like, even though it's a lot of work and it's draining and whatever, it's just fun. Like, you get to meet people, you're talking all day, you're on your feet, you're walking around, it's just a good environment for the most part, and so I was happy to be doing that, but going from a 9 to 5 to managing my own time has been a challenge for me for sure.
For sure. What is the biggest roadblock that you hit so far in this product development process, and, like, what did you do?
That's an interesting question. I feel like the biggest roadblock I've hit has been my resistance to my personal growth. Like, I think in the beginning, I like to say that I was naive in the beginning. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are naive and have this like essence of delusion, and I like that, and I think that that's a strength. And so I was naive in the beginning, and I thought, I would just like sit there and imagine like, oh my gosh, a year from now, I'm gonna have all these games sold and all this stuff. And I think that's very common to think, but I didn't realize how much I would have to grow and how much I would have to overcome in order to get to where I wanna be, and I think that that's what I've been learning the past few months has just been a lot of, like, personal growth and facing fears and overcoming things that I was so, like, adverse to when I first started this whole thing, and I didn't even know I would be doing.
Can you give us an example, like, what one of those things would be? Like, public speaking, or was it, like, selling, or
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm still literally working on I'm gonna work on right after this is social media, is just putting myself out there and putting myself on camera, like, it's pretty difficult for me, but I really want to overcome that, and I want to share preferences, I wanna share my journey, and so it's just figuring out how to move past the fears of the way I'm being perceived or the way I look on camera or just all those things that come up when you're filming yourself. It's weird. And so that's one thing. The other thing I think for me is just like standing up for myself a bit more with my interpersonal relationships, like in family dynamics, and just kind of like finding my voice, I think has been something that I've struggled with and I'm having to overcome in order to get to the next level. Because as a business owner, like, that's not gonna fly. And so I've been learning how to stand up for myself in times that are a little bit more difficult.
yeah. Has there been anybody that you've been able to learn from? Like, have you picked any mentors, or, and if so, what has that experience been like?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when I first started this, I did hire someone that was a recommendation, and I ended up paying him a lot. And just being super honest, I don't think that it was worth what I paid. However, it was still helpful. So I did have a mentor in the beginning. He kind of helped me with understanding like the financial system and kind of like just like basic economics, which was interesting. And then, he kinda helped me with the beginning of, like, the manufacturing piece, so, like, what to ask for, and just things like that. And since then, I have had 2 other mentors, Jules and Stace, with Bold Sky, and so they've been extremely helpful. I hired them for maybe, like, a couple months, and I'm in their mastermind, and they were super helpful. And then recently, I've been having more of, like, a spiritual mentor, and she's the one that's kind of been helping me recognize the fears that I have and working through those.
Yeah, definitely. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to somebody who's maybe feeling stuck, in their process, or maybe they're learning how to do something new and they're like, man, I just cannot overcome this hurdle. Like, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah. I think that's, like, kind of where I'm at right now. I feel like I've been stuck. And something that's been helping me is just accepting where I'm at and just knowing that this is my path and this is my journey and to not compare it to anybody else and not be upset of where I'm at. Like, it's been 4 years since I started preferences. Like, I would have loved to sell out of the first round that I've ordered, but I haven't. And I have to accept that and I have to be okay with that. And I think once you accept where you're at, it opens up the possibility for you to move forward because you're not so upset with yourself anymore. You're like, your energy, it changes. You're more accepting and you're more open to receiving. And so I think it would just be to accept where you are and just be open to receiving possibilities and allowing yourself to feel a different kind of energy.
That's good advice. And what do you think is something that people can do to stay open to feedback without losing their own confidence?
Stay open to feedback without losing their own confidence. That's an interesting question. I'm thinking,
Like, if
I
you've
think
been
for
given, like,
me
really tough feedback in your product, in your product journey, I'm sure you've heard probably, like, really challenging things that I can imagine, like, you work so hard on something and then someone's like, "Oh, here's this big problem that now you have to figure out and how to solve," and it kinda, like, knocks you down a bit. Like, how do you stay confident?
yeah. I think, that happened to me actually. Someone it was a little bit of a different situation. Someone who is in the gaming tabletop game industry kind of told me that I can't move forward with my product because, um, there's other products like it on the market. And for maybe like a day, I was super upset and I was like, gosh, what am I gonna do? Like, that's really upsetting. I don't know how to move forward. I need to change the mechanics of the game. I need to do something different. And I spoke to a couple people and some people were they were like, I don't are you sure? Like, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I had to think about it in a different way. And all products have competition, and all products also offer something maybe that the other product doesn't. And a lot of that has to do with who you are as the business owner as well, and what you bring to the table and what you bring different. So I had to sit with that and think about that, and I obviously have decided to move forward with the product. Um, but that was feedback that was really difficult to hear, and I think it's a challenge. You have to recognize what the person is saying and determine whether or not it's something that you wanna listen to. Um, and take that in and then figure out what path you wanna go down. Um, I also think, everyone everyone should want feedback because that's how you grow and that's where you can learn from others. So although it's really difficult to get feedback and it might hurt your ego or it might feel really hard, it's kind of where you learn and where you grow. So
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit more about the game. So the game preferences, I remember you telling me that you and your friends used to play this, just kinda, like, handwrite it,
mhm.
and then you turned it into, like, an actual tangible product. So can you give us, like, a little bit of a bio on, like, what the game is?
Yeah. So preferences is just connection simplified, and it's actually taken me so long to get to that point of figuring out what it is because it's a super simple game, but it's also very complex. But essentially, you're learning about people through their likes and dislikes, and I'll just explain how to play it really quick because it's super easy. So on each card, there's a preference, so that can be a cold beer, walks on the beach, and dogs. And then when it's your turn, you're gonna pick 3 random cards, and you're gonna rank those things in order of most liked to least liked. And then once you've ranked them, you're going to get the group to guess what your order is based off how well they know you. So it's an opportunity for people to share. Um, it's really funny because 'cause I've included, like, inappropriate cards, of course. Those are super easy to remove, so if you wanna play with someone like your grandma or a little kid, like, you totally can, and that's what's really fun about the game is that it's accessible for everybody. But it's just a really great way to get to know people or to test existing knowledge of people that you already have. And so it's a really simple game, but it's also, in my personal opinion, really complex because there's a lot that goes into it. It's ties into authenticity and being yourself and identity and who you show up as in the world. And it just kind of gives people an opportunity for them to present themselves how they want and how they feel authentically, and then for people to also accept them for who they are. So I've just been trying to figure out how to like simplify that, and it's basically preferences is connection simplified.
And that's a good game, I think, for business owners to get for their
Oh,
team,
yeah.
right? I mean, like, if you're in a business setting, obviously, they could take out the inappropriate cards.
Yes.
But if you're playing it with people you're trying to get to know or, like, new teammates, that might be, like, a really fun, like, team night type of game where they can all pass it around and kinda do that.
Yeah.
Um, if someone wants to buy it, where do they find it?
On my website, so it's preferencegame.com, and then on there, there's a little store locator, so we're just in a few stores around San Diego if you're in San Diego, one in Texas and a couple others. So yeah, and then I'm hoping to get on Amazon soon as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Amazon is the kicker, right? Because
I know, yeah, especially for great eats. Mhm.
yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on here and sharing your story and giving us some insight. I really appreciate it. I think this is good stuff for people to realize and
Yeah.
kind of put into perspective. So thanks so much, Lindsay.
Thank you. Yay.
Every week on the Growth and Grit podcast, we bring you real stories and practical tools to help you thrive through challenges. If this resonates with you, make sure you subscribe, follow, and share this podcast with someone who could use it too. It only takes a second, but it would mean the world to us, and it keeps you plugged in to fresh inspiration.